Brother Michael was a man of unshakable faith. A devoted Christian, a loving husband, and a father of 2 beautiful children, he lived his life committed to serving God. As a dedicated member of the Deeper Life Bible Church, he believed in holiness, prayer, and unwavering trust in the Almighty. He had been looking forward to the upcoming Deeper Life retreat for weeks, preparing his heart for what he hoped would be a time of deep spiritual renewal. His wife, Sarah, packed his bag with food for the journey, her hands lingering for a moment as she held on to him. "Michael, are you sure you don't want to wait until next month? The news has been bad lately, more kidnappings, more attacks," she said, her voice trembling slightly. Michael smiled, cupping her face gently. "Sarah, I can't live in fear. God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. I have to go." His son, David, only 5 years old, tugged at his sleeve. "Daddy, when will you come back?" Michael crouched to his level and ruffled his hair. "I'll be back in a few days, my boy. Be good to your mother, okay?" David nodded, but his lips trembled. His little arms wrapped tightly around his father's neck. Peculiar, his 7-year-old daughter, simply stood at the door, her large, dark eyes filled with an emotion she didn't quite understand. "Don't forget to pray for us, Daddy," she whispered. Michael hugged his children tightly, kissed Sarah on the forehead, and with one last lingering glance at his family, stepped out of the house. The journey to the retreat was supposed to be peaceful, a time to reflect and pray. But little did he know, this would be the hardest trial of his faith. The bus moved steadily along the highway, the passengers chatting quietly. Michael sat by the window, reading his Bible. His fingers traced over Matthew 10 verse 33, "But whoever denies me before men, I will also deny before my Father in heaven." He closed his eyes and meditated on the words, unaware that his faith was about to be tested in ways he had never imagined. Then it happened. A loud bang echoed through the air. Screams filled the bus as gunshots rang out. The driver slammed on the brakes, and the vehicle skidded to a stop. Before anyone could react, masked men carrying rifles stormed in, their voices harsh and commanding. "Out! Everybody out!" one of them barked. Michael's pulse quickened as he stepped down with the others. The armed men shoved them into the bush, forcing them to march deeper into the dense forest. The further they went, the less hope Michael had of rescue. The silence of the wilderness swallowed them whole. The kidnappers' camp was a nightmare. Men in tattered clothing lay on the ground, their eyes hollow with despair. The air smelled of sweat, fear, and death. The militants lined up the new captives, their leader stepping forward. He was a tall man with a deep scar running down his left cheek, his eyes void of mercy. "Who among you is a Christian?" he asked, his voice like a blade slicing through the air. Silence. The captives looked at one another, afraid. Michael swallowed hard, knowing that this was his moment. His flesh screamed at him to stay quiet, to save himself, but his spirit burned with conviction. He slowly stepped forward. "I am a Christian," he said. The leader's lips twisted into a cruel smile. "A deeper life Christian, no doubt," he sneered. "You people love to preach holiness, don't you?" Michael remained silent. Another man stepped forward and punched him in the stomach, sending him to his knees. "Deny Jesus, and you will live," the leader said. Michael coughed, pain exploding through his ribs, but he looked up, his face calm. "I cannot." A powerful slap sent him crashing to the ground. The taste of blood filled his mouth. "You will say otherwise soon," the leader promised. "Take him away." 4 days, they tortured him. They beat him with sticks, their laughter ringing in his ears as he groaned in pain. They denied him food, mocked him, spat on him. At night, he lay on the cold, hard ground, whispering prayers through cracked lips. One evening, after yet another beating, the leader crouched beside him. "You are stubborn, Christian," he mused. "But you are wasting your life." Michael, barely able to lift his head, whispered, "My life belongs to God." The leader chuckled darkly. "We'll see." The next morning, they brought him before the camp once more. The other hostages, their eyes filled with fear, watched as the leader raised his gun. "This is your last chance," he said. "Deny your faith, and you will be free." Michael's vision was blurry from pain, but his voice was steady. "I will never deny Jesus Christ." A deadly silence followed. The leader's finger tightened on the trigger. Michael closed his eyes, murmuring a final prayer. If this was how he would die, so be it. Then, chaos erupted. Sudden shouting. Gunfire. Confusion spread through the camp like wildfire. One of the militants turned on another, accusing him of stealing supplies. Another raised his gun, shouting that their leader had betrayed them. Within moments, the entire camp was at war with itself. Michael's heart pounded. He knew this was no coincidence. This was God. Summoning the last of his strength, he crawled away, unnoticed in the chaos. His legs felt like lead, but he pushed forward, weaving through the dense forest, his breath ragged. He ran and ran until his body could take no more. He collapsed on the roadside, barely conscious. Lights. A car. A man rushed out. "My God. Are you okay?" Michael could only whisper one word. "Jesus." The stranger, moved by his state, lifted him into the car and drove him home. When Michael finally walked into his house, Sarah fell to her knees, sobbing. His children clung to him, their small arms wrapping around his battered body. "We thought you were gone," Sarah wept. Michael smiled weakly. "God saved me." That Sunday, in church, he stood before the congregation, scars visible but his faith stronger than ever. "They tried to make me deny Jesus," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "But even at gunpoint, I refused. And God, He delivered me." The entire church erupted in praise. People wept, some fell to their knees. His testimony shook the hearts of everyone present. Even those who had been lukewarm in their faith found themselves renewed. Michael had faced death, but he had stood firm. He had chosen Jesus, and in return, Jesus had chosen to save him. His story spread, inspiring many. And until his dying day, Brother Michael remained the man who had refused to deny his Lord.